Welcome to Bible Prayers and Untold Stories, where every whisper verse is truth, and every story brings light to the soul. Let us journey through the sacred words and uncover the wisdom hidden in prayer. There are days when time seems to stand still. There are moments when space seems to split between heaven and earth, between the flesh and the divine. And in such a moment, he is called, not by men, but by the one who wrote the stars. Bologna, a day of light rain, Mother's Day, when the statues shed silent tears, when the faithful knelt under the domes, soaked with dew, no one knew that in the crowd that day, one would become pope, not for fame, but because he bowed his head like a son returning to his mother's arms. Pope Leo XIV did not begin with a speech. He began with a memory, riding to a remote village in Peru just to bring the Eucharist to a blind mother. He did not speak of glory. He spoke of a child holding up a rosary, believing that the prayer would heal his mother. It is not politics nor strategy. It is faith. A faith not written in books, but in tears. Not spoken in Latin, but in the language of the aching human heart. In the darkness of the modern world, where wars have not ended, where mothers in Ukraine, Sudan, Haiti still silently weep before the image of Mary, Pope Leo does not bring edicts. He brings something deeper, that if the world is to be saved, it must learn again to look up to her. And so the journey begins. Not the journey to the throne of Peter, but the journey to become a true son. A son who knows how to listen, who knows how to serve. A son who stands in the midst of a divided world, but still believes that Mary, the mother without borders, will be the last bridge of mercy. The wet roof tiles of Bologna, the raindrops falling silently on his shoulders. The faithful stand in silence, gathered around the hill of San Luca, their eyes turned to the sky, where the figure of Mary is quietly in the clouds. There are mornings that do not begin with light, but with a look from Mary. There are ceremonies that are not part of history, but part of the promise between heaven and earth. Cardinal Robert Prevost, his dark robes lightly wet with rain, holding an old rosary, walks slowly among the crowd of faithful in Bologna. The camera gradually focuses on his eyes, quiet, emotional, profound. Leo XIV voiceover, soft, trembling voice. That morning, I was not a powerful man. I was just a child returning to the feet of the mother. I stood there with the people of God on a day that seemed ordinary, but was not. There was something in the air, a rain, that did not wet the ground, a silence that did not frighten. It was as if heaven were holding its breath. None of them knew that among them a pope was being awakened. No one knew that the heart of a messenger was about to be opened not by fame, but by prayer. Cardinal Robert's hand was placed on his left breast, his eyes raised to the statue of the Virgin Mary. Everything seemed frozen in time. Then his voice rang out again, no longer a remembrance, but a message. Leo XIV voiceover. That morning, I asked for nothing great. I only said, "Thank you, Mother, for I have never been alone. And I did not know that a few hours later, you would lead me to a cross I had never imagined I would bear." Leo XIV voiceover. That morning, I asked for nothing great. I only said, "Thank you, Mother, for I have never been alone. And I did not know that a few hours later, you would lead me to a cross I had never imagined I would bear." The bell rang again. The narrator ends this section with a wake-up call to the times. Destiny does not come with a roar. It comes in a gentle rain, in a silent prayer, in the heartbeat of an unprepared man, but always chosen. And from that morning, the moment has changed. A new era begins not with an agenda, but with humility, not with power, but with a word of thanks. The light of dawn sweeps silently across the Andean hills, a rough red dirt road, bare in the midst of majestic nature. The image of a priest on horseback appears in the distance, the wind blowing his simple vestments. On horseback, a small bag containing the Eucharist. Not all roads to heaven are paved with marble. Some roads are covered with red dust. Some feet are not kissed, but walk silently until they reach the last person who still believes that the Lord is coming. Leo XIV voiceover, slowly. In Peru, I did not come to preach. I came to be present. I did not bring theological lessons. Carrying only one whisper, God is here. He stopped by a dilapidated cottage, unfastened a Eucharistic bag, and placed a small piece of bread on a rock wiped clean with the hem of his native mother's dress. Her child knelt trembling, tears rolling down his dusty cheeks. In a place where God seemed to have forgotten, faith is not extinguished. It smolders like coals in the ground, and just one prayer is enough to ignite it. One afternoon, the child, about 7 years old, thin, holding a broken rosary, ran to the priest. Child, gasping voice, subtitles. Father, grandmother said, if you pray here, my mother will be healed. Leo XIV voiceover. I knelt beside her. I didn't know what to say. I just repeated one word in silence. Please don't take your eyes off this child. A few months later, the procession in the village, the mother, who had been dying, was now walking in the Eucharistic procession, holding her child. She did not look for the priest. She simply looked up at the image of the Virgin Mary and nodded, as if in thanks. No one thanked him, for they knew the one who had healed was not wearing a vestment. The eyes of the native mother, the eyes contained more than any teaching ever preached from the pulpit. Combine other scenes, poor widowed mothers kneeling before the statue of the Virgin Mary, eyes closed but lips moving with prayers. Leo XIV voiceover. I began to understand. Faith is not in books. Faith is not in conferences. Faith is in the eyes of mothers who are illiterate, but know how to love to the end. Leo XIV walks through the village, hands clasped behind his back. No one is cheering, no one is filming. Just people with people. People carrying God and people waiting to see him. They have no solid chapel, but they have knees worn out from kneeling. They are not mentioned in the history books, but they support the church with every morning prayer. And among them, Robert is no longer a missionary. He has become a son of the people. As dusk falls, Leo XIV kneels before an image of the Virgin Mary faded by the mountain wind. His hand is placed on his chest. The rosary sways silently. Leo XIV voiceover. I left that place with a mission, not to bring the church to the people, but to bring the people into the heart of the church, so that no one will be considered marginal anymore. Not every apparition of Our Lady is accompanied by a dazzling light. Sometimes she just walks in the rain. Silence.Leo XIV voiceover. That day, when the statue of Our Lady was taken down, I looked up, no longer a cardinal, no longer a theologian. I was just a son standing in her arms. And I knew something was coming. Not politics, not royalty, but a call that could not be refused. And then she wept with them. Not the statue wept blood, but the sky itself melting into tears that fell. Rain and tears mingled. Leo XIV voiceover. I saw her in Peru, in the eyes of widowed indigenous mothers. I saw her in Bologna, among the souls without hope, and I understood that she never abandons her children, not in war zones, not in hospitals, not where no one remembers her. Leo XIV voiceover. I think of mothers who bear an invisible cross, forgotten mothers, mothers who pray alone, and I say to them, your tears are never in vain, for I too am weeping with you, and heaven is never deaf to tears. A small chapel. Pope Leo XIV kneels alone, his hands touching the altar, his eyes closed. A candle burns sideways. The shadow of the mother is cast on the old tiles. He did not begin his pontificate with a declaration. He began with a whisper. Please look to me. Leo XIV voiceover. I do not pray to you for the unity of the sex. I do not pray to you for the growth of the church. I pray only, do not let us live as orphans, without a father, without a mother, without each other. Images of Christians of different traditions kneeling before the same statue of Mary, Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant. No need to agree on language, just agree in tears. She didn't choose her children. She just loved them, everyone. And that motherhood is the last bridge that can unite what the world has torn apart. Leo XIV voiceover. I have no formula for unity, but I have a belief. Every time Christians kneel before the Mother, something moves in heaven, a different beat. A promise is resurrected. Leo XIV stepped onto the Vatican balcony, but he did not raise his hand to bless. He simply placed his hand on his heart, bowing his head toward the image of the Mother in the square. Over the sound of the light rain, he could only say one sentence. Leo XIV, live. To save the world, learn to listen to the cry of mothers, as if it were the cry of God himself. Leo XIV, in his private room at the Vatican. The light is dim, his face silently reflected in the candlelight. On the table, a small statue of the Virgin Mary, a faded rosary, and a worn Bible. No one beside him, no ceremony, just a son standing silently before his mother. On the throne of Peter, there are long nights when even the bells no longer ring. Only the sound of a heart beating softly, like a child afraid to wake his mother. Leo XIV voiceover, quiet, sincere. I learned to lead, not from speeches, but from the moments when I was alone before the statue of my mother, tending each rosary with trembling hands, and asking, Mother, can I love as you do? A native mother strokes her son's head. When he is angry, she says nothing, just puts her hand, and the boy gradually quiets down. The scene cuts to Leo XIV embracing a homeless man crying on the steps of the Vatican. No sermon, just presence. The Church does not need more words. The Church needs a hand on the shoulder of the sick. It needs to sit beside the lost, not to direct, but to wait. Leo XIV voiceover. I understand. Jesus gave the Church to the Mother before he died, not to keep, but to nourish. A Church that wants to survive must know how to become a mother. Images of priests, nuns, young people serving in hospitals, shelters, refugee camps. No one holds a banner. No one speaks. They just hand out bread, wipe away sweat, carry the sick. The background music swells with emotion. The true Church does not need a golden crown. The true Church only needs a bower head. Leo XIV stands in front of a large church, but does not enter. He turns toward the side alley, where a blind man is praying his rosary alone. He sits down next to him. No one speaks. Only the sound of the wind and the gentle clinking of beads can be heard. Leo XIV voiceover. As the successor of Peter, I cannot lead you with strategy. I must lead with mercy, not with authority, but with the slowness of love. The synod meeting, the laity arguing, the reporters taking pictures. But the screen suddenly fades, then silences with the image of the Virgin Mary holding the child in the house of Nazareth. No noise, only the mother's eyes on the son. Leo XIV voiceover. If the Church today wants to survive, learn from the mother. Less noise, more silence. Less debate, more presence. Less boardroom, more kitchen. Less rigidity, more support. He knelt in prayer at the altar, clutching the old wooden cross from the seminary. His voice was choked. His eyes were not looking at the camera, only looking up. Leo XIV voiceover. I am a father, only because I am a son first. And the mother never let me go alone. It was in solitude that I understood. The Church cannot be an ivory tower. The Church must be the heart of the mother. Leo XIV stepped down from the altar, past a disabled child in a wheelchair. He bent down, put his hand on the child's head. No camera followed. No applause. Only the wind blew gently through the dome of the church, and the last words echoed, like the breath of mother in the heart of the world. Leo XIV whispering, if you ask, what is the Church of the future? I will answer, the Church that walks like mother. A remote village in South America. Night had fallen, but from a dilapidated house at the end of the village, candles were still burning. An old woman was kneeling, her back bent, her hands trembling, counting the beads of the rosary with her calloused fingertips. No one saw, no one heard, but the sky seemed to be quiet to listen. She was illiterate, but she knew all the mysteries. She had no pulpit, but her life was a never-ending sermon. Leo XIV voiceover, quiet. Dona Clara, an ordinary woman, but a silent pillar of an entire church whose name no one knows. She does not carry a cross of gold. She carries the cross with worn knees, and tears fall silently for others. Dona Clara is anointing a sick person with holy oil. Her eyes are cloudy, but her hands are still gentle. Her mouth still prays. Behind her, on the earthen wall, hangs a faded image of the Virgin Mary. And then, when someone in the village is sick, they do not call the doctor first. They go to her house, because they know their faith is not a dogma, it is a presence. Leo XIV is telling the story to a group of young people, not on stage. No microphone, just a group sitting in a circle in the shade, holding rosaries. His face is radiant in the twilight. Leo XIV live. Dear children, the world is not, he needs more heroes in armor. The world needs rebels with love, saints with brave hearts, young people who dare to step into the darkness, not to disappear, but to make it shine. A young girl washes the feet of a homeless person. A young man helps a drug addict tie up his hands. A monk hugs a crying stranger. Leo XIV's voice rings out like fire spreading through the darkness. Leo XIV voiceover. Be light, not by shining on others, but by burning from within. The Virgin Mary appears in stained glass. Her arms are open. Her mantle falls upon the peoples. White, black, Asian, European, old, young, all sheltering under her light. He does not choose the best. He chooses those who love the most. Leo XIV appears for the last time on the Vatican balcony. But this time, he does not raise his hand to bless as usual. He turns around, walks to the statue of the Virgin Mary inside, kneels, silence, then speaks. Leo XIV, looking up warmly, I send you, not to conquer the world, but to remind the world, Mother is still there. Bring her home. Let the church live again, not with the sound of trumpets, but with a small prayer at the bedside, with a sympathetic look in the marketplace, with an embrace without conditions. All over the world, people praying at night, young people offering flowers to Mary, old people praying a rosary in a hospital, a child kissing a paper image of Mary. And so, the flame never goes out, for it burns in unexpected places, from the kitchen of the poor, from the smile of the forgiver, from the hands that hold the rosary in the midst of a world that is breaking apart. The church is not built of stone, but of men who still believe, though no one sees them. Leo XIV voiceover whispering. When I close my eyes at the end of this day, I want to whisper only one thing. Mother, stay with me tonight. Because those who entrust their mission to you never go alone. A gentle wind blows through the Vatican Square. The cross atop the basilica sways. The sun rises. The story ends, not with thunder, but with a quiet promise. That fire is still alive.